Libby, why is your background not Disney? Well, it is if you stretch your imagination. Hi guys, I'm Libby and welcome to Punsy's Palace, where I do all things Disney, hence the Punsy, and all things regarding my life and home, hence my palace. So if you haven't already, be sure to hit subscribe down below for more Disney and lifestyle content. So my background is Disney. Just wait. I know you see a lot of Wicked here, but that's because I'll be talking about that and The Wizard of Oz today. And The Wizard of Oz also isn't Disney, but it was in the Great Movie Ride, which was a Disney attraction. See? We got there. And why am I talking about this movie and the Great Movie Ride? Well, that is because I am taking part in the collaboration of the Great Movie Ride put on by Matt from Teacup For One, where he has been doing a different video each week for all of the different movies on this lost attraction. And today is the very last one on The Wizard of Oz, so be sure to check him out and all of his videos linked up above and down below. They're very entertaining and you learn an awful lot. But today I am not only talking about The Wizard of Oz, I am also talking about Wicked. So The Wizard of Oz means a lot to me. It's a great movie, an all-time classic. I played Dorothy in a production of it, so I'm a big fan. But you know what I love even more? I love Wicked. Not necessarily the book, but the musical. So Wicked was a book written by Gregory Maguire. Full title was Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, reimagining the Wicked Witch of the West as sort of the main protagonist and giving her more of a backstory, giving her a name, Elphaba, and we go through her journey from birth, actually like a little bit before, at like consummation, all the way to her demise. This book was published in 1995, so it's been out for a little while. But then, in October of 2003, Wicked, The Untold Story of the Witches of Oz premiered on Broadway with stars Kristen Chenoweth and Idina Menzel. Absolute queens and legends. And I wanted to talk about these things today because I actually think both the original movie, the book, and the musical are all great in their own rights, and they are all fantastically adapted from one to the next. So first, let's talk about the Wicked book. The book is very much an adult novel. There's quite a bit of sex in it, as well as it really focuses on animal cruelty, as well as Elphaba being treated harshly because of her skin color. So a little bit of some racism. In it, Elphaba is very much a social activist, and it focuses a lot more on that than her cool witchy powers. It's a pretty dark retelling of the past of the Wicked Witch of the West, but rightfully so, since at the point it was published, all we really knew about the Wicked Witch of the West was that she was a villain, so she needed a dark retelling. In the book, there is a very, very small mention of Dorothy because most of Elphaba's story takes place before she even arrives. But other things from the movie that translate well to the book is the treatment of Galinda turned Glinda. She's very self-centered, but she turns out to be a good friend to Elphaba at times, but she isn't really in the book a whole lot, which makes sense because she wasn't really in the movie a whole lot. And it also makes sense for a dark retelling to not be about two witchy best friends. A big drawback to the book I found was that they never really mentioned what actually happened to Fiyero, and there were a lot of random characters that were thrown in there that were never even mentioned or seen in the original movie. But I will say it was a very interesting retelling of the witch, and I found the attention to detail on how she can never, absolutely never interact with water was so consistent, and it answered like every question you may have had about that. She bathes her skin in oil instead of water, and she constantly covers up her entire body anytime it rained and she had to go outside. So the idea of her dying by water at the end didn't come out of nowhere. It was actually very well led up to the end. But there was still never any explanation really of why she had this affliction. Maybe it was just because her skin was green. That's about all we can really grasp. But then the adaptation from the book to the musical, I think, was excellent. But let's get something very straight. These two are not really the same story at all. The musical is very much an adaptation of the book, not really based on. We keep a lot of the similar characters, we keep some small semblances of the plot, but a lot of the story in the musical was made up for the musical to make it new and interesting and perfect for wider audiences instead of just adults, as well as making some room for some catchy tunes and dance numbers. Yes, we of course kept Elphaba, but she is a lot funnier with a more sarcastic tone in the musical than being so dark and brooding all the time in the book. We keep Glinda, but she's a lot more chipper and fun and enjoyable to be around, and as well as somebody you're sympathetic to and you root for throughout the show. And we keep the storyline of finding out who Elphaba's real father is and why she kind of had skin that turned green, as well as Bok turning into the Tin Man, the Cowardly Lion origin story. But a lot of the animal cruelty activism in the musical is very much shortened to just Dr. Dilliman, the lion, and the flying monkeys, which aren't really the main takeaways of the musical, which I think is actually a good thing. I like that the book had a clear message about animal cruelty, but the main message of the musical is all about friendship and being kind to people despite their differences, perhaps sometimes in spite of their differences. And I love both messages, and I like that they're both very different, because the mediums they were presented in needed them to be different. In books, you can be a lot darker and you can make deeper messages because you have so many pages to convince the reader, as well as you're not directly showing them, so the dark images only go so far as the person's imagination. But in a musical, you have a max of 2 hours before people really start to get antsy, so you have to put in plenty of fun numbers and dance sequences that don't really add much to the plot, but are just enjoyable, as well as you're doing everything visually, so it should be bright and fun and not too dark and scary, especially because you want it to reach wide audiences, because all that people really know is not the book, but the classic family movie. And you also have a shortened amount of time to get a very deep message across, as well as getting the entire story and having enough time for us to enjoy and love all of the characters. And Wizard of Oz, it's a classic movie because it was done in a movie with a few short, memorable songs and amazingly memorable, bright characters. The movie was done with so many iconic moments and sequences, and just think, there's so many of those moments in the movie that anytime you see something that even partially resembles them, this is the movie you automatically think of. There's Red Ruby Slippers. Anytime you see a Scarecrow, Tin Man, and a Cowardly Lion together, or even 2 out of the 3, a blue gingham print, you think of Dorothy. A cyclone, you probably think of Wizard of Oz. Anytime you hear the state Kansas, you probably think of Wizard of Oz. A yellow brick road, you think of Wizard of Oz. A green-faced witch with a black and pointy hat, this is the person you're gonna think of. Munchkins, Emerald City, Glinda's entire ensemble. And I don't know about you, but anytime I see a small terrier, I immediately think of Toto. And what's fantastic about this movie and all of its different retellings is that so many of those icons from the original can be reused and repurposed in a different way, and people already have so much meaning associated with those things. In the book, you just mention an Emerald City, and the person reading it can already picture it. You already know what someone looks like with green skin, and you know what munchkins are. You understand the whimsy of the place already, but just your imagination is used to give it a darker tone, which set the musical up for great success because they already had a vision board to work off of, but they just had to make it slightly different. So they add a lot more pink to Glinda's character to contrast with Elphaba's green skin. They make sure everyone wears green in the Emerald City, but they make it stylish and a little bit kooky and theatrical. They're able to make so many little foreshadowing hints and nods along the way to the original that helps give the audience a clue as to what is going to unfold and happen in a very clever way. For example, in The Wizard and I, Elphaba is dreaming of meeting the wizard, and she sings, "There will be a celebration throughout Oz that's all to do with me," which we know as the celebration of Ding Dong, the Witch is Wed, Witch Old Witch, the Wicked Witch. Not the one that she was thinking of, but because we know that already, it gives that line layers upon layers of meaning and a little bit of some dramatic irony. And she also sings about how she'll be so happy that she'll melt, and I don't know about happy, but she definitely does melt, and we know that. Even Fiyero talks about how life is painless when you're brainless, which gives us a very small clue as to who Fiyero is going to turn out to be, the Scarecrow. And there are just so many more. Those are just a few little tidbits. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant how they capitalize on the fact that the original Wizard of Oz movie did most of the work for them, and they had this book as a piece of work to kind of see how they could reimagine the story for Elphaba to make her a very compelling main character. All they had to do was reuse some of those pieces and make the story a little bit more meaningful and elaborate with some songs and dances. Now I want to talk about the really big difference between the book and the musical of Wicked. It's the ending. In the book, Elphaba really does die. She melts and she dies. She doesn't run away with Fiyero. In the musical, she runs away with Fiero. But I really understand why they couldn't have that same ending for the musical, because the musical is otherwise very pretty and uplifting and bright and fun. So she instead goes through a trap door when she gets sprinkled with the water and runs away with Fiero afterwards. But I think actually both endings work well. I don't think one ending is better than the other, or one ending should have been put on both of them instead of them being different. The ending makes sense in the book where she actually dies because there was so much emphasis throughout the entire book on how she can't touch water. So it was in front of us all along on how she was going to end up ultimately dying, and it was only a matter of time until we saw that unfold. But in the musical, it isn't really mentioned. Her affliction against water isn't mentioned, like at all, except for one scene in Thank Goodness. People are spreading ridiculous rumors about Elphaba, and Fiero can't believe any of it, and one of them is that her skin is so pure that water could melt her. That rumor doesn't really make any sense to have her die from water at the end because it's just a rumor, and it's just to show that all of these people are making up anything they can about this person who is different from them. So instead of Elphaba dying from a strange rumor that could turn out to be true, she uses that rumor to fake her death so that she can leave and live a happier life with Fiero, to get away from the scrutiny of everyone in Oz. And since the show focused more on her feeling like an outsider and how she tried to be good but ended up becoming the villain anyway, I think that was a much better ending of her not actually dying but using the fake rumor in order to fake her death and live on was a much better ending for the musical than having her actually die. So I love The Wizard of Oz, and I love all of its different retellings because the semi-vague original story leads so much for people to do and twist and retell and reimagine, and so many in different, fun, exciting ways. The most famous, of course, being Wicked. I mean, we should have known that Frozen was going to be so successful. You give Idina Menzel a main role with an awesome soundtrack, it's gonna do things to people. But anyway, that is my take on why the Wizard of Oz retellings of both Wicked the book and the musical are amazing adaptations of the story and of each other that we all have come to know and love. So let me know which one is your favorite. Is it the book, the movie, the musical? Let me know in the comments down below, or also let me know which Ozian is your favorite character. I love Elphaba, but honestly, I think Glinda would be super duper fun to play in the musical. I just need to work on hitting the high notes. But I'd probably end up playing Nessa. And if you like this video all about Wizard of Oz and the Great Movie Ride and anything else dealing with the Wizard of Oz, make sure that you check out all the other participating channels in the description down below. I'm sure Matt's gonna have something fantastic as well as other participants for today, and be sure to tune in to the live stream that will be premiering later tonight where we talk all about the movie. But also, if you like this video, guys, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and until next time, farewell.